From the discovery of sprawling subterranean otherworlds to the startling second phases that completely turn the tables in so many of its boss fights, 2022's Elden Ring was a mesmerizing action RPG adventure that surprised players at every turn. Now, more than 2 years later, it appears that developer From Software isn't done with pulling the rug out from under the feet of its fan base just yet. With the surprise reveal of Elden Ring Nightreign,
I think this is a good idea for them to do. And one of the reasons why is because I think Elden Ring, they basically peaked with Souls-like games. They can make another game that's as good as Elden Ring, but I don't know if they can ever make something that's like really like that much better because of just how good Elden Ring was. So I think that now they should probably explore like other horizontal, like, you know, like kind of things that are similar and see what else they can do besides that.
Co-op spin-off that takes the cautious dungeon crawls of Elden Ring and turbocharges them into propulsive slash and dash speedruns. After spending some 6 hours of hands-on time with this bold new spin on From Software's own Souls-like formula, I can confirm that Nightreign is shaping up to be something truly unique.
Yeah, this is really cool.
If Elden Ring was one of 2022's biggest chart-topping hits, then Nightreign would appear to be its dance floor filling remix. Chopped up, intensified in beats per minute, and designed to both excite fans of the original and broaden its appeal to the masses.
I think that's also another really big component, is that making a more like casualized version of Elden Ring for like just players that aren't like super invested. I think that could also really help too. This is going to be an insane streamer game. Well, I mean, all of these games are. But yeah, you're right.
Now, unfortunately, because it was such an early build of the game that I played, I wasn't able to capture any footage, even though it was running great on PlayStation 5.
And so also, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but in the trailer, it showed a player doing the Sekiro deflect. So, like, you're probably going to have that mechanic as well.
I apologize for the generic footage I'll be using here, and also for my generic face.
And running up a wall.
Anyway, here's how Nightreign breaks down. Imagine stepping back into the opening area from the original game, only nothing in the landscape seems to be where you remember it. Also, there are 3 of you now, and everything seems to be happening at a much higher tempo. That's Nightreign in a nutshell. You squad up with I
hope you don't have to play with other people. Like, I just want to play solo, right? Most of the time.
At the start
you don't?
Of each
yeah,
round,
I don't think so either.
Get dropped into a densely packed alternate reality chunk of
I kind of assumed
that has
but
both its enemy types and structures randomly shuffled around at the beginning of each session, and it's up to you and your squad mates to build up from your lowly level 1 character's status as fast as possible by harvesting runes and earning Destiny-style loot drops as you slash and dash through every enemy-filled camp that you come across.
I think also another big component to this is that I wonder if From Software saw how popular the randomizer runs were. And they were like, that's a good idea. Maybe we should actually do this.
So, what's the big rush? Well, each session of Nightreign is structured as a 3-day cycle, with each in-game day taking about 15 minutes to complete. At the start of the first day, you can pretty much pick any direction to plot your whirling path of destruction along, but as day approaches night, the space you can operate in narrows, and you're liable to be killed by acid-like rain should you find yourself caught for too long beyond the perimeter of the rapidly shrinking circle on the map, known as the Ring of Rain. In that regard, Nightreign is a bit like Fortnite, only with more medieval forts and knights, and considerably less TikTok dances. Once the Ring of Rain reaches its smallest diameter at the end of the day, a major boss fight is triggered. Like the rest of Nightreign's enemies, these end-of-day bosses are always randomized, and during my repeat runs, I experienced clashes with familiar returning foes like a draconian tree sentinel, as well as some brand new nasties like the centipede, a towering, twisting swarm of disgusting...
That's not a new monster. That's a monster from Lost Izalith in Dark Souls 1. That's the exact same thing. You can cut these parts off. It's not new.
Limbs, prone to detaching its body parts in an attempt to divide itself and conquer my crew. With the day 1 boss dealt with, day 2 begins and the Ring of Rain rescinds, allowing your squad to take a breath, regroup, and then resume ransacking the map for upgrades in preparation for the more challenging foes to come at the end of days 2 and 3. It's a structure that allows for a gradual build of tension before a palpable sense of accomplishment and release with each boss felled. Over time, my squad mates and I became a well-oiled machine as far as getting the balance.
The only concern that I also have is that, like, locking somebody into a play session that's like over an hour, that's a pretty long play session for making a game like this for a more casual audience. Like a 1 hour lock-in is a lot. League of Legends, yeah, I know. And I think that there's a lot of people that don't play League. It's 45 minutes max. Okay. I thought it was going to be like probably 25 or to like 20 minutes each rotation, because you said each daytime was like 15 minutes or something, and so I figured night would be 5. Yeah, maybe it's an hour, I don't know.
Right between beelining for churches to snatch up valuable HP flasks and taking down the more major overworld enemies like dragons and hippos in order to get maximum XP boosts for buck before the map was cast back into darkness. We were also able to eventually settle upon the best combination of heroes for our group. You see, Nightreign doesn't feature the lengthy list of generic character classes that the original Elden Ring did, and players won't have to Google the difference between vague-sounding archetypes like the Prisoner and Wretch when they first hop into play. Instead, Nightreign offers 8 different heroes to choose from, each with very clearly identified strengths and weaknesses, in order to make it as easy to jump into as possible. 4 were playable.
Yeah, I think that's probably, I don't know if that's really a good idea, but like, I kind of like having a base character that I can customize, but as long as I can build up one character, then it's effectively the same thing.
In the preview build, Wilder is an all-rounder hero type with a good balance between speed and attack power. Guardian is a burly tank type with heavy attacks and increased damage resistance. Duchess is a nimble type with fast attacks and a killer quick-step ability. And Recluse is a mage type with ranged magical attacks. Additionally, each character features a unique skill and
I was gonna pause.
Ranged magical attacks.
Wait a second.
Additionally, and Recluse is a nimble type.
So this
with
boss
fast
is from Dark Souls 2. This is the Duke's Freya, something like that, at the bottom of like all those spider webs. So like a lot of these bosses, they're basically adding in Dark Souls bosses to Elden Ring and making it kind of like, I'm assuming almost like a boss rush type thing. Duke's Dear Freya? Yeah, something like that, right?
A killer quick-step ability, and Recluse is a mage type with ranged magical attacks. Additionally, each character features a unique skill and ultimate attack that both operate on cooldown timers. Wilder is able to use his hookshot skill to either reel in smaller enemies like Scorpion in Mortal Kombat, or to quickly zip past the swinging arms of a major boss in order to sneak a few strikes in from behind. Guardian is able to conjure up a mini tornado to knock swarms of enemies off their feet, while Recluse can put a marker on an enemy so that every time that enemy is attacked, the damage is siphoned into boosts for her own HP.
That's cool.
These unique abilities are all extremely useful in their own right, but finding ways to combine them with the special moves of your squad mates is key to surviving Nightrein's toughest enemy encounters. One strategy that my squad grew to rely on quite heavily was to unleash a damaging ultimate attack on an enemy, such as Guardian's swooping dive bomb, then immediately follow it up with Duchess's restage skill, which basically creates an instant replay of the last attack landed and allows you to double the total amount of damage inflicted. It's in finding killer combinations of moves such as these that the co-op focus of Nightreign really shines. And after multiple failed attempts, my squad was finally able to progress through to the 3rd day of the cycle, which climaxed in a fight against a snarling, Cerberus-like beast called Gladius, which
that's really fucking cool. I really like that a lot.
My team to coordinate and queue up skills.
And so that's like a total new boss fight. Because I could see like after the 3 days and having this really, really cool fight where there's like multiple people going against it. This one is new. Yeah, this monster's totally new.
Attacks with painstaking precision in order to overcome it. Gladius is just the first of 8 major bosses to take down in Nightreign, each with their own 3-day cycle leading up to them. In addition to the randomization of enemy types and structures, further wrinkles will be introduced into each boss cycle, such as live volcanoes and forests full of rot, in an effort to prevent the landscape from ever growing too predictable. That's along with random events like meteor strikes, swarms of giant ants to fend off, and the surprise invasion of powerful tormentors like Margit the Fell Omen in an attempt to impede your progress.
My viewpoint on this is that I can see why a lot of people are skeptical about this game, because I think that people are viewing it as like you're just taking Elden Ring and then like trying to make like a ghetto version of Monster Hunter out of it. And I hope that's not really what happens. I can see why people think that, but I don't think that's what it's going to be, but we'll have to see.
In addition to the approachability of its roster of playable
Seems
characters,
rather unique, yeah.
Nightreign has polished up
like a game
lot of
mode.
Elden Ring's more abrasive edges to make it a far more friction-free experience. A new wall jump move allows you to quickly hop up and over steep sections of the terrain, while the removal of any fall damage means you can lunge off cliffs or down dark holes without pausing to study your surroundings for safe platforms.
Yeah, I think that can be a good thing. I mean, even Elden Ring reduced a lot of like complexities and difficulty things that the game had, so I think that's fine. Like, I don't think that any of that kind of stuff is good or bad for the game. I think it really depends on what the stuff is specifically.
You only need to walk near a site
It's
of grace
Helldivers
to top
in the
up your
Monster
health
in the
and
Elden Ring
flasks.
world.
And if you want to
I
spend
don't know
some
about
runes to
that.
level up, you just button mash through pages of auto leveling that best suits the base traits of your chosen character. Rather than having to agonize over whether you should allocate a point to faith or dexterity, for example. It all gives each session the feeling of being shuttled along in an intense speed run. And you can get around even faster by using spectral...
That's actually one thing that I don't like. I don't like games that rush me. I don't like being on a timer. I don't like being able to, not being able to just like take a break for a few minutes.
To vault across great distances.
I think this is actually a test for something.
Death is
There's
not
a good chance it
necessarily
might
the
be.
end in Nightreign either. If you
Should you
find yourself
respawn?
down, you have a near-death meter that appears above you.
Oh,
and your
you're
squad
not.
mates must
Okay.
attack you while you crawl along the ground until the meter is reduced and you can return to the fray.
Yeah.
It may sound slightly
That's easy
odd to
to expect.
basically kick a friend while they're down, but it's a system that works quite well. Particularly since you can use ranged attacks like magic or crossbows to revive a down squad mate from a distance without the risk of putting yourself in harm's way. Should all three of you be wiped out at once, it's the end of the session.
Oh, wow.
And you must
Okay.
restart day one with everyone back at level 1.
So I
you
wonder
need
if you're going to have like carts or anything like that. Because in Monster Hunter, if you die, you have a handful of respawns. I wonder if they're going to do that or not.
stay on your toes in order to keep the rest of your squad on their feet whenever possible. While there's no doubt that elements of it are inspired by the likes of Destiny and Diablo 4, it needs to be said that Elden Ring Nightreign is not a live service game. Once you buy it, you get access to the complete package, and there are no battle passes or microtransactions to contend with. It can also be played in single player should you wish to stay offline, with enemy health pools that scale down so that it's not too overwhelming for solo players.
That is really good. Yeah, that's what I want to do. Exactly.
Although, curiously, there are currently no plans to allow players to play in pairs. As someone who has sunk hundreds of hours into Elden Ring, both in the original 2022 game and this year's Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, I can confidently say that From Software is onto something truly spectacular with Nightreign. Cutting throats at breakneck speed with a pair of friends in tow has been a consistently
I
exhilarating...
just feel like they've probably hit the ceiling with like the Souls-like formula, and they need to take what they've done with that formula and see if they can apply it to other types of adjacent types of gameplay as well. That's what I think they should do. Like, this is a smart idea to do. Monster Hunter only gives enough lives for everyone to die once before a reset. Yeah, I know. I don't understand why no pairs. Who knows, right? It's an experiment. This might be what they're testing. Yeah, I think so too. So, like, this is what my opinion is that I think that games like, for example, Monster Hunter, the synchronous gameplay that you can play solo are actually the future. Because I think hard MMOs like Throne and Liberty, World of Warcraft, etc., those games will always be popular, but they're never going to reach like the same level of like notoriety or mainstream audience success that they used to. And the reason why is because MMOs have a lot of there are a lot of like weaknesses to them. And I think that one of the big weaknesses is that usually they're not really as high a quality. And what I think people really want to see is the merging of single player and multiplayer games. And I think Monster Hunter is probably the best example that I could use of that. And you have other games that try to use that formula too, like Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. Honestly, game doesn't even sound remotely similar to Monster Hunter. It sounds like Elden Ring Vampire Survivors, 30 minutes of progression than a boss. I feel like that's kind of like, it depends on what the progression is, right? Because like in Monster Hunter, like you get meta level progression from doing hunts, and then you go back to like town, and then you can upgrade. I don't really know yet. Experimentation is good. Yeah, it is. And so like, I don't think a copy of Monster Hunter with Soulsborne Coat of Paint is a good idea. That's just my take for the day. Well, we have to find that out. I mean, I don't really... My perspective is that I think Elden Ring plays extremely well. It's kind of like Fortnite in a way. Like, Fortnite plays like such a good game that I'm willing to forgive some of the things that I find kind of annoying about it, or like even the style of the game that I'm not really a big fan of, because the game is just like, it's something I like, right? Network test this February. Yeah, I like the game. I think it plays very well. And so I think if you take a base game that plays extremely well, and then you try to put another game mode on it, that's better than, you know, a bad game that doesn't play well with a game mode that fits it, if that makes sense. Like, game playability, I think, matters the most. That's why, for example, Fortnite, you know, Fortnite wasn't even made to be a battle royale, but it turned into one, and it was really good because of the quality of the base gameplay. And so anyway, I think with this game, that's the future of a lot of online games, is optional synchronous gameplay that there are solo alternatives for. Basically Monster Hunter. I think that is the convergence, because I think people really like the idea of MMOs, but they don't like the reality of having to log on at certain times, having to do large scale raids that you need a bunch of people for, that like you have to like plan time ahead of time for. Yeah, like it's just too much.
Experience
yeah,
so
with the
far,
community,
and
yeah.
especially
I think having a
gratifying
shared
when you
space
work
matters a
together
lot.
to topple its toughest bosses using each character's special abilities in tandem. Assuming the developers can throw enough randomized elements to keep each 3-day assault feeling fresh, then Elden Ring Nightreign could well provide an exciting change of pace for existing fans, and an enticingly accessible entry point for newcomers when it launches sometime in 2025.
Yep.
So, what do you think? Are you excited for Elden Ring Nightreign, or do you prefer things slow and steady rather than rough and ready? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to read my full impressions and get your fix for all things Elden Ring Nightreign on IGN.
This game's like Risk Rain 2. You said something about that a few months ago. People feel like they want to be part of something. Yeah. Well. Oh, look at this.
The life.
You know, like, by the way, you know who's in there with those doors. Artorias is in there. It's gonna be fucking Artorias. Absolutely. It's gonna be so fucking good. And so anyway, Manus. It could also be Manus, you're right. It could be both, right? It could be a two-phase fight. I think there were a couple of mods that did that. So yeah, anyway, this is the way that I see it. I think this game could be kind of like disappointing for some people, but I think that they're making the right decision by trying to do experimentation. I think also having some place like the Roundtable Hold where you can see other players and interact with them is something that's really important and really cool. Because I think players, like, for example, like, you can't be a solo player in a single player game. And I know this might sound odd to say, but the idea of, and like the aesthetic of playing solo doesn't matter when everybody's playing solo. You can only be a solo player if there are options to not be solo players, right? And before Ranny Dating Simulator? Yeah. So we'll see what's going to happen. It's the whole From Software team isn't working on this game either. No, I think it's probably just like it's almost like a very big mod for Elden Ring that will probably be easier for players to get into. That's what I'm kind of expecting to see happen, is like the modding games are going to be kind of similar to this. Elden Ring Dating Sim? Yeah, I don't know about that, right? But we'll see what happens. The important thing is to have choice. Yeah, I mean, obviously, as soon as this game comes out, I'm going to play the fucking shit out of it, right? Like, I love Elden Ring. I've put like hundreds of hours into Elden Ring. I think the game's amazing. So, you know, any new information about this or anything that comes out about this, I'm going to absolutely be talking about it, thinking about it, and doing everything about it, right? Of course. If it's not more than $50, I'm sold. I think that if a good game is out, people will pay $70 or $80 for it. I don't think that people actually make decisions based off of the cost of a game in a lot of cases. People find ways to make the money if the game is good enough to do that. You know, like that's what it is. I think it'll be $40. I think it will probably be $40 as well. And it might have like an early access or something like that that you can buy early and, you know, maybe get that. I just don't really know yet.